Good afternoon, and welcome to the WBC Faster Together LinkedIn Live series of the Women Business Collaborative. The WBC is an unprecedented alliance of over 65 women business organizations and hundreds of business leaders building a movement to create equal position, pay, and power for all women in business. Through collaboration, advocacy, action, and accountability, we are mobilizing thousands of diverse professional men and women, business organizations, and public and private companies to accelerate change. Check the chat for our 9 action initiatives that drive change. These are to increase women in the C-suite and the boardroom, to address the underrepresentation of women in access to capital and in certain industries, and to advance a pipeline of women leaders to bring gender and pay parity and diversity and equity inclusion to the business landscape. In all our work, the WBC is committed to diversity. Our councils and board of directors include more than 34% people of color. The power of collaboration is already creating momentum and accelerating the pace of change for businesswomen. And this LinkedIn Live series is designed to share our work. Every week, we look at one of the key ways we advocate change by presenting data, research, and best practices, by lifting up women's voices for change, and by showcasing the importance of cross-generational collaboration and allyship, especially of men in the movement. Today, we are here to speak about entrepreneurship and the state of play in 2022 and what the WBC and our partners are doing in this area. With us today is Judith Goldkrand, Senior Vice President and National Women's Segment Leader at Wells Fargo and WBC board member, and Monica Smiley, Editor and Publisher of Enterprising Women Magazine and WBC Advisory Council Champion. Monica and Judith chair our Women Entrepreneurship and Access to Capital Initiative. Welcome, Judith and Monica. I'm so glad to speak with you today.
Thank you, Gwen.
So I'd love to start by kind of setting the stage. We hear about the rise of women's entrepreneurship in the past few years, and especially in what we call the COVID era. What does the landscape look like today? Monica, I want to start with you.
Sure. Well, thanks, Gwen. Well, first of all, let's just very quickly share some quick facts. There are about 13 million women entrepreneurs in the US, a little bit under. They employ 9.4 million workers, and they generate about 1.9 million in revenues, and they represent about 42% of all businesses. I feel like women entrepreneurs, particularly those with the smallest women-owned companies, were really hit particularly hard in the pandemic when particularly solopreneurs and women with school-age children who had to juggle, just extraordinary demands with at-home schooling and just, we all know the issues that we've had to deal with over the last 2 years. And also because so many of those women are in service industries that were hit very hard. But we did see some really amazing success stories come out of the pandemic, and I'll share one a little bit later on in this session. But we've also seen women who have really been able to pivot their companies and come back stronger than ever this past year. But I really think we've tested the resilience and the strength of women business owners over the past 2 years. It's, as we all know, been a pretty challenging time.
Absolutely. Judith, what are you seeing?
Well, we're certainly seeing that, as Monica indicated, the number of women-owned businesses is growing faster than any other sector. And especially we're seeing that with Black African-American women and Latino women. They're really growing their businesses quickly. We have seen a lot of women who have left the workforce due to issues with microaggressions or frustration with corporate America, and they're starting their own companies, and they're trying to find a path for themselves as they begin a company and start to grow it to save their own, to support their own families, and then ultimately to scale.
So let's talk a little bit, switching gears, kind of what the Women's Access to Capital and Entrepreneurship Action Initiative is doing. What are we doing as we started in 2019, right? So what are we doing as we watch this happen? Judith, you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Gwen. So the Entrepreneurship and Capital Initiative last year, we really wanted to evaluate what were those barriers to capital that everybody talks about, right? We know that women get less than 2.7% of all venture money, and Black and Latinx women get like 0.64% of venture capital money. So we really wanted to assess what are those barriers to capital and listen to women. And so we embarked upon an exercise to interview a variety of entrepreneurs across the spectrum of their entrepreneurial journey and women who represented different demographics so that we could really hear and understand what was going on. And a lot of different themes came out: confidence, understanding of financials, ability to pitch. But one of the loudest voice that we heard was around the understanding of capital. And so we've taken that, and also a quote from our friend Phyllis Newhouse of Extreme Solutions, who brought 2 SPACs to market in 2021, who said, if you don't understand the rules of the game, you can't play the game. And so that really inspired us to, as WBC, collaborate with Babson College and their Center for Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership to create a master class on capital. And we're really excited to have the opportunity to introduce this this spring. There'll be 4 modules, and each module will have 2 sections. It'll have the academic section, which will be in a webinar format delivered by one of the professors at Babson's MBA program. And then it will have a workshop so that you have the practical hands-on approach that you can really dig into your business and figure out how to apply. And I hope that at the end of the course, the women have a much better understanding of the vocabulary of capital, how to know what kind of capital to ask for at different stages of their business, when to approach it, and they understand what it means to their own business. Because we all have to recognize as business owners that every decision we make has a financial implication. And so we're excited to be able to move that forward and focus on capital and hope that we start to see some impact. And then Monica, you want to talk about the other initiative that we're working on?
Sure, I'd be glad to, Judith. So we're really excited about an incredible project that was actually initiated by Bank of America, partnering with Seneca Women to produce the Bank of America Women's Capital Directory. Now, Judith and I were looking at, and the team involved here, committee involved, we're looking at creating an online resource. And, when we reached out and saw what Bank of America had created, and they've invested more than a year and several full-time researchers really devoting an incredible amount of work into this project. When we saw the quality of what had been put together, we said there's absolutely no reason for us to reinvent the wheel here. What we want to do is support them and collaborate with them and promote the fact that this wonderful access to capital directory exists. So we met with them recently, and they've agreed to a special section of the site that will feature resources and education for women entrepreneurs. And that means that the WBC partners of ours that have wonderful membership organizations like WPO and WeBank and NABO and others will be able to be included in the Bank of America directory as another resource for women. So beyond, where to get the capital, we all know you need that other important backup and support to be able to utilize the capital and grow your business. So we're thrilled that's in process. We've submitted or about to submit this week that final information that they need from us. So the site should be updated by March, and we'll be working with them to announce it with a press release. And we're just really excited about that opportunity.
That's fantastic. And I think what's interesting in what you both said was, a couple of things I want to kind of bring back to sort of how important the power of collaboration. We've got about 21 partners in the Women Entrepreneur and Access to Capital space, this collaboration with Seneca Women and Bank of America. But also, what you were talking about, Judith, too, is it, type of capital and language and money, but there's other resources that these women entrepreneurs need as well, right? And so I want to talk about how powerful that is and how powerful it is working with these 21 actors and the importance of collaboration. I don't know, Monica, you want to start with that since you were
absolutely
with collaboration?
Well, it's an incredible group of partners, and they have so much strength. They bring so much value to the women's business community. They're just such a wonderful resource. So it's just essential that we all work together. And we're thrilled that the WBC gives us a platform to do that, to be able to meet and discuss with them regularly, to collaborate, to support all the initiatives that each organization has, and to share those. So, we want to give women entrepreneurs every tool that we can to succeed and to grow their businesses to new heights and to set the bar higher. And, it takes all of us working together and collaborating together to really meet those goals that we have. So we are absolutely thrilled that we have this dynamic group that we can work with.
Yeah, I think that the collaboration here, Gwen and Monica, is so critical. You know, women talk a lot about what's holding them back is access to capital. But the reality is we all know that capital alone will not scale a business, right? You need the resources that all of our partner organizations are going to provide, whether it's peer advisory through the Women Presidents Organization, or the Thrive financial education that comes through WeBank, or the certification of being a women business enterprise that comes through WeBank, or some of the great resources that come from NABO, or from PWIN, or CEO, or any of these other amazing organizations. It does take a village, right? It takes a village for us to raise our businesses and to scale them. And so understanding how we can work together to really change the environment, and as Monica said, to raise the bar, is so critical. And I love the fact that WBC has created this gateway for engagement and this opportunity for everyone to convene together, and not to talk about how we can compete with each other, but really talk about where we can find our synergies, where we can lift each other up, and how we can, at the end of the day, help the entrepreneurs to be successful.
No, I think that's perfectly said, Judith. And I got so excited about collaboration. I said we had 21 in this, we have 12. So somehow I got ahead of myself, but it's only the beginning of the year, right? And in that level of collaboration, and you said, Judith, you really ended it perfectly, and we're really trying to help the women entrepreneurs at this point. Let's talk about some of the challenges and some of the sort of success stories in this space, sort of the what is going on. Monica, I'm going to start with you on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think in terms of the key challenges that women entrepreneurs face, certainly accessing capital that they need to grow at every stage is critical. And that, of course, is why we're putting such a strong focus on that area with this WBC initiative. I think that women are also facing the same challenges that all business owners are facing right now in terms of a very tight talent market. We hear that all the time on our calls with our Enterprising Women Advisory Board, that, you know, people are wanting to grow and having trouble finding, you know, key players to add to their team. And supply chain issues. I think we're all aware that that's impacting businesses. We hear a lot of people talking about that right now. And certainly there are a number of other challenges, but a couple other I might mention quickly. One is simply creating parity for women entrepreneurs of color. We know that's incredibly important. And parity in accessing federal contracting is something that, you know, our partner WIP and others, you know, have been working very hard on. You know, as I mentioned previously, I think that, you know, the pandemic really hit women the hardest. Some industries were nearly wiped out. On the other hand, we have seen some really amazing success stories. And one that I just very quickly wanted to share with you that I think is inspiring and uplifting, and we all need to hear those. One of our Enterprising Women of the Year award winners last year was a woman from the Chicago area named Shatal Daftari. And she started with a company that rented evening wear for Indian weddings and special occasions called Saris and Things. So she entered the Enterprising Women of the Year Awards with a little bit under 7 million in annual revenues in 2020. And when the pandemic hit, she realized that the sari business, the online rental business, was going to be in big trouble. You know, people just weren't doing the big events where you would need to rent items like that. So she very quickly pivoted her business. She started a second company called SNT Biotech, and she started selling COVID-related supplies, testing kits, masks, and other items. And despite the fact that she entered the awards program with over 7 million, she called us back and said, could I revise that? Because she hit 30 million by the end of last year. Just incredible growth, and formed such strong partnerships with hospitals across the country that she's not strictly tied to COVID products now. She's getting ready to open a lab in Chicago, and I suspect it'll end up being a chain of labs, you know, if I know her. And, you know, they're doing testing with all sorts of other things beyond COVID. So she's, you know, on some firm footing in terms of, you know, no matter what happens with COVID, I think she's going to be just fine. She earned a spot on the WPO's 50 fastest growing women-owned business list last year, which is really impressive. And, you know, and she set a goal of hitting 100 million in revenue this year. So, you know, we love to hear stories like that. Certainly she's not alone, but, you know, there are a lot of really fearless women out there, hardworking, that, you know, that did quickly pivot and have had explosive growth in the last year or so. It's really inspiring to know about those women.
That's an amazing story, Monica, and I love hearing it. And she's been so generous in terms of sharing her story and being an inspiration for other entrepreneurs. That, that's one of the things I think that's so special about this community of women entrepreneurs, is that they care for each other and they want for each other's success. And so they are sharing their stories and they are reaching out and saying, how can we help? Or let's do business together, right? Because it's not just about getting a contract with a big firm. It's also about doing business with each other and supporting each other's businesses. I wanted to add though, Monica, to when we think back to capital and some of the other challenges that we see, what I'm also seeing amongst entrepreneurs are a couple of things. One is knowing what kind of capital you need, how much you need, and when to ask for it, right? And really thinking through the importance of developing relationships early, whether it's with your bank or with an investor, because it takes time for people to get to know your business and to develop a relationship with you before they either make a loan or invest. And so really starting to understand, and hopefully that masterclass on capital will help people get to that place where they understand that. And I think the second issue is actually an institutional issue, which is around transparency. Because I hear a lot from entrepreneurs, well, I applied for a loan, but I got declined and I don't know why. And so the institutions need to be more transparent, but the entrepreneurs need to empower themselves to ask why. Help me understand what caused the decline. Tell me what I need to do in order to get approved the next time. What are the metrics that you're looking for? What are the barriers? And so I think that will help change the dialogue around capital.
And that's perfect, because you're actually leading into our last question. The last 4 minutes of this is, what are the key things, whether it's a finance institution, venture, angel fund, the entrepreneurs, so that women entrepreneurs can thrive and drive their economic growth? So Judith, you kind of started with a couple of key things, from transparency to asking, as the entrepreneur, asking exactly what they need to. Do you want to expand on that? And Monica, I want you to jump in, and we do only have 4 minutes. So
Sure. So I have 3 messages from an institutional perspective that I think could help change the landscape. One is financial institutions, whether they're banks or venture firms or angel funds or private equity, whatever it is, they need to promote a diversity of talent, and they need to give that diverse talent a meaningful voice in the room, whether it's related to a credit decision or an investment decision. Because until we have that diversity of voice in the room, we're not going to change the outcomes. So that's number one. The second one is to listen and evaluate each entrepreneur's story independently, to really understand where they come from. What's the historical context of how they got where they are, right? We know that there are many entrepreneurs, especially women of color, who come to their businesses with a lack of resources up front. They don't have family and friends' money to help them grow early. And so it may take them longer. And it may not be a reflection of how they manage or who they are, but it is a reflection of what the historical context is. And so to understand that and to recognize it, and also help us admit what our own unconscious biases are, so that we can make more objective decisions. And then the third thing, especially on the investment side, is to standardize the questions. Venture capital has a history of asking women, especially women of color, different questions than they ask men. Women typically get asked backward-looking questions. How did you get here? Help me understand where you are to date. Whereas men, especially white men, are asked questions about their vision and about their future plans. This creates a very different outcome. And so asking for standardized questions across the board and standard KPIs where the milestone markers are not moving for women as they continue to grow their business. Super critical. And then once again, also focusing on historical context, right? Making sure that we understand why the value of a woman's balance sheet might be different than the value of somebody else's balance sheet when you're looking at a personal guarantee or otherwise. Monica, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely agree to all. I know we're tight on time, but just one very quick point I might add. We have work to do yet on changing the mindset of a lot of women who don't understand how and why they need to access capital to grow. There's resistance among many people who think that they're going to lose control. They they are risk adverse. A couple of years ago, we added the question on the Enterprising Women of the Year awards form: have you ever used other people's money to grow your business? And we were astounded by the answers and how many of these women, even with fast growing larger businesses, said, I'm very proud. I've never used anybody else's money. I've grown it all myself. Well, how much more could you have grown it or scaled it had you known how to use other people's money, right? So some education, obviously, to do around that side of this topic as well.
There's a lot to talk about. And thank you, Judith and Monica, for your insights today. And of course, your work, the teams you do at Wells Fargo and Enterprising Women's Magazine and with the WBC. We are committed and excited to grow the work and ensure that women entrepreneurs have the resources and all the resources, as we talked about today, that they need to continue to grow their business. That's all we have time for, though. We'd like to thank everyone who joined us for our LinkedIn Live. Our next show will be next week on Thursday, February 24th at 12 p.m. with Linda Peakshat, who will speak with Sharon Reynolds and Nick Kober about Black women's entrepreneurship and the importance of allyship and collaboration. And join us weekly to keep up to date on our progress, the movement for gender parity and equity in business, and the latest issues. And follow us on social media at WBC Collaborative on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And finally, thank you, Judith, and thank you, Monica. It was a great discussion, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen.